Good afternoon and welcome to Wild Onion Walks History Nuggets. I am your host and tour guide today. My name is Kevin. And History Nuggets is being done to look at the vast history of the city of Chicago at a time when I can't get out and do live tours because of COVID. We have to socially distance, and I certainly understand that. So this is a way for me to communicate with those who have a love for history, a love for Chicago, and are not afraid to look at the positives and the negatives of history. Because you know what? History is a messy subject, isn't it? It's not always as neat and clean as we would like it to be. And our title today, Civil War, Slavery, and Stephen Douglas, certainly encompasses that. And we are starting our tour today at the tomb of Stephen Douglas. I'm going to switch over here. And you will get a chance to see that Stephen Douglas is buried right here in Chicago off of 35th Street, just east of Martin Luther King Drive Jr. He's buried on what was his estate that he bought back in the 19th century called Oakenwald. Now, Stephen Douglas was an interesting character. How many of you know actually anything about Stephen Douglas? Most of us probably have not been taught a whole lot about him. But he was a very interesting and, in fact, very important character in Chicago's history. These are some of the historical markers that are along the line that will tell you a little bit about Stephen Douglas. And here is the tomb. Whoa. 96 feet in height, with Stephen Douglas in a 9-foot statue on the top, done by Leonard Wells Volk, which is interesting because Stephen Douglas was barely 5 feet in actual height. So he was known as the Little Giant, not because of his height. So, well, his height, yes, but giant because of the fact that the man was a great orator, and in fact is probably most well known for the event that is marked right here, the 1858 debates for senator for the state of Illinois, whereby Stephen Douglas, who was very well known at the time, debated a relatively unknown lawyer from downstate Illinois by the name of Abraham Lincoln. And in a series of 4 or 5 debates throughout the state of Illinois, they went at it over the issue of slavery. And Douglas, again, an interesting and emblematic character. Why? Because Douglas, when he married a Southern woman, and when his father-in-law died, he bequeathed Stephen Douglas a plantation down south. It's a cotton plantation that did in fact have 100 slaves on it. Now, Douglas, because he was looking for national aspiration, did not necessarily want to deal with the issues of owning a plantation and owning slaves, so he actually hired a manager who was, by all accounts, extremely cruel to the slaves on the Douglas plantation. So there is something to be said for the fact that Douglas, while not directly owning it, it was bequeathed to him. It still was in his name, so yes, technically it was his plantation. Yes, technically he owned slaves, but he only made a major visit to the plantation in 1848. He made a few small minor visits over the course of time and eventually got rid of the plantation. But that is a stain on his record. And he was a Democrat, and at that time the Democratic Party, of course, was the party of slavery. And therefore he was probably most well known, and in fact in his debates with Abraham Lincoln, he put forth the Freeport Doctrine. What does that mean? The Freeport Doctrine basically said that in new states, they could vote slavery up or down, so it would be up to the electorate, taking basically a popular sovereignty or a states' rights rule. Now, there are many that would disagree with that, and I understand that, especially in 21st century context. But in 19th century context, this made complete and total sense, although it did cost him support in the South. He had been very friendly with the southern states, but when he would go to run against Lincoln in 1860 for President of the United States, that cost him votes because they felt that his not saying that slavery was an absolute right violated the Southern principle that slavery was a God-given right, and therefore it cost him rights. Of course, the ticket was split 3 ways anyways, and ultimately Abraham Lincoln would go on to become the President of the United States in 1860. And once that happened, Stephen Douglas threw his support wholeheartly. He was an anti-secessionist. He did not have any countenance whatsoever for the for the dissolution of the federal government. And so he strongly supported Abraham Lincoln, and he had always been anti-secessionist anyways. He was never in favor of that. So while he felt that slavery was a states' rights issue, when it came to the idea of breaking away from the country over the issue of slavery, he was adamantly against it, and he called the South traitors. That is often overlooked nowadays. And he didn't live very long after the election. In fact, he died in 1861. Many would say that due to the stress of the campaign and the issues and everything like that, that's ultimately what helped to make his health very poor and ultimately die. And so as we come forward here now, we see that there is a gate that blocks things, but I'm going to see if we can't. No, we can't really do that. But you can see right here, there's a bust of Douglas on the top. It says that he was born in 1813, died 1861, and then on the bottom it says, "Tell my children to obey the law and uphold the Constitution." So he was very much a Federalist in many ways. And when he died in Chicago here. He died at the Tremont House Hotel, and then was eventually buried on his estate. However, the monument that we see here did not begin to be built until 1866. It was completed in 1868. 1866 and 1881. Again, the sculptor for Douglas up at the top is Leonard Wells Volk, who also did a lot of Lincoln stuff. He's buried at Rose Hill Cemetery up on the north side. And what we see here is a tomb made out of Vermont marble. All right. And there are 4 statues on the corner. One is entitled History, one is Justice, one is Eloquence, one is Illinois. We'll walk all the way around. And then there are reliefs up at the top. See right here. And those are titled Advance of America. So again, he was very much an expansionist American, which is not a popular view nowadays, I know. But again, history isn't always fun, isn't always easy, isn't always comfortable, is it? We forget that. So he was very much about the expansion of the United States out west. One of his biggest contributions to the city of Chicago would have been the running of the transcontinental railway through Chicago. I'm sorry, a little sun in the background there makes it hard to see. And the Illinois Central, which literally, I'm going to pan away just for a second, is just over this direction here. as is Lakeshore Drive. Ultimately ended up cutting through Oakenwald, which means that also made Douglas a rich man off of his sale of land to the Illinois Central Railway. And that money, combined with his 20% interest in the profit from the cotton plantation down south, was his major money right there. So yes, Douglas did in fact profit off of slave labor. But you know what? So did a lot of Chicago as well. He was not the only one. The North in general also profited off of slavery. So again, American history, it's not always pretty, it's not always easy to deal with, but we always have to deal with it in the context of the times in which it happened. Now, in addition to the tomb here, we're going to make our way out. This was also the site of Camp Douglas. Now, Camp Douglas, it was named in honor of Stephen Douglas. It originally started out as a camp for training Union soldiers, but quickly became a living hell, if you will, because it housed Confederate prisoners of war. And just like there were ugly Union camps for prisoners of war down south, this one was a bad one for Confederate soldiers as well. They were mistreated. They were not given adequate food. It was bad health care. It was an ugly event, ugly place. And so this area now that surrounds us in what is known as the Douglas community or Bronzeville, and I'm just kind of panning around here because this whole area would have been part of the camp, extending all the way over to Cottage Grove. Cottage Grove, but also Dr. Martin Luther King Drive Jr. as well. This was all this very unfortunate camp for Confederate prisoners of war. But built right on the edge of that camp was also what was known as the Soldiers' Home, and that is directly in front of us. Now, the Soldiers' Home was completed in 1864. It was designed by William Boynton. If that name rings a bell, that is the guy who created the water tower and the pumping station downtown, in addition to many other things, but that's probably one of his most well-known works. And this building is not completely from 1864. There have been additions through the 1920s and renovations actually going on fairly recently as well. But from the time that it opened in 1864, at least for a couple of years, it was a hospital for those that were either in Chicago or transiting through after their time fighting down south. Then when the war ended, this became a convalescent home for Union soldiers all the way up until 1872. In 1872, it was sold to a Catholic charity. And from 1872 until 2005, it actually was a orphanage. It was a home for troubled teens, different things along that line. It is now still owned by the Archdiocese of Chicago. It is now known as the Cardinal Meyer Center. It houses a number of different Catholic organizations inside the building here. But this is the last direct building that has a tie to the Civil War era in Chicago. So these are things that we often overlook, even if we live in Chicago. How often do we come down and see this? We don't. And that's why History Nuggets has been born. And I just want to give you this view here. This is over the new pedestrian bridge. Here, I'm going to show you real quickly. That exists. This is just a few years old at this point, and it provides a spectacular view of the Illinois Central Railway, which, like I say, cut right through Oakenwald, and of course gives us a fantastic view of modern Chicago. But of course, when the train came through here, Chicago didn't look anything like that, did it? No, it did not. So that's going to wrap things up on this end. I'm going to switch back over here. I hope that you've enjoyed History Nuggets today. It's been my pleasure to share a little bit about this portion of the city's history. There's some more things down in Bronzeville here that I would like to share with you in future episodes. And like I say, this is just the beginning. And if you enjoyed this and you want to watch it again, this will go up on my Wild Onion Walks YouTube channel. So you can certainly search that out. I'll try and have that on by the evening. And I will be posting pictures on Wild Onion Walks Facebook page as well, to give you a little bit more up-close view of some of what you saw in the video today. So this is Kevin. I'm signing off down in the community of Bronzeville, one of the great 77 communities that make up the city of Chicago. I hope that you enjoyed this tour and that you'll join me again on the next History Nugget. Bye-bye.